Okay, welcome listeners again to our next iteration of our podcast, Coffee with Cow. I'm Chris Lawler, the co-founder and CEO of Learn International. We're a boutique provider based in Ireland, but offering programming across Europe, Southeast Asia, Ireland, UK, and various other places. I'd like to welcome today Matteo Talotta, who's a recent master's graduate from the University of Pittsburgh, originally from Canada. And today we're going to have a little bit of a chat about what it's like to be at the start of your career in international education in a time when the industry is going through massive disruption and upheaval and having a generally negative time. So thanks so much for being with us, Matteo. And it's going to be a pleasure to have a chat and see what your plans are.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chris, for inviting me and having me on. I'm looking forward to having this chat.
Great. Well, look, I thought what the reason for this specific podcast is we were having a chat yesterday. Mm-hmm. And for the listeners out there, Matteo reached out to myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the industry, just to get a little bit of advice from our own experience, from my experience, and whoever else you've chatted to. And I thought the initiative of that was really great. It's something that I did because I was advised to do that earlier on in my career, and so I'm always happy to give my time when that happens. So we were chatting yesterday, and at the end of the chat, I thought, gosh, there's so many people that I've heard that are really trying to break into this industry, and they're in that space where they don't have enough experience to really be, viable for a particular level of job or entry level of those types of things. But in order to get that experience, they need the job, and it's like bashing your head against the wall. So I was thinking, that we should chat on the podcast, and hopefully we'll be able to reach out, and your experience will help others, maybe even just to empathize. They've been doing the same thing. Maybe they can learn from some of the mistakes that you've made, some of the positive steps that you've taken, and those types of things. And in the end of the day, maybe have a forum whereby we can all chat together and help each other out, because right now more than ever, networking is really important. And obviously you've started well with that. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now, your academic background, what was the draw for you for study abroad? I know that you did study in Italy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised just outside of Toronto. Did my undergrad at the University of Toronto in Italian and political science. I always had an idea to do something in the international realm. At first, it was more political science related, and then I started to drift more towards the Italian and the cultural kind of side of education. I grew up in an Italian family. Having said that, when I saw that my undergrad college offered the opportunity to study in Florence, I jumped at the opportunity because, and no fault of immigrant communities, but the culture could become a little bit stuck in time. And it was important for me to be able to go to Italy, spend time there, and actually get to know Italians who live there, see how Italy's changed, the culture's changed, and even just update myself. It was quite an experience. I learned a lot about just contemporary Italy, the culture, and even for myself to be able to see, okay, what things about me are Italian, what things about me are Canadian. It was an incredible experience. And because of that kind of heritage push, I really started to drift a little bit more towards the cultural side. I still enjoyed the political science aspect of my undergrad degree. However, I wanted to do something that was a little more language and culture related. And so I graduated in 2017. Immediately after, I moved to the US. I went to the University of Pittsburgh to pursue a master's in Italian language and literature, where I also had the ability to teach Italian language and culture courses. My reason specifically for moving to the US was that growing up in Canada, the United States and Canada, there's so much in common, but there are a lot of things that are different. And in both countries, there's ideas about how people on either side of the border are. And I wanted, again, that idea of just wanting to get a real life experience, see it through my own eyes, meet people, talk to locals, and just kind of understand for myself, are these things the way they are? And kind of form my own opinion rather than just kind of listen to what other people have to say. Graduated in 2019. Actually, I should kind of backtrack a little bit. The first summer that I was at the University of Pittsburgh, I was selected to be a program administrator for a study abroad, assistant program administrator for a study abroad program in Rome. And it was there that I really got to see kind of the background of what goes into study abroad programs. And that really sold it for me. I really felt at home in the international education field. It really didn't feel to me as though I was working. It felt something about which I was just really passionate. And so I graduated about a year ago. And from that point on, I've really just been trying to break into the field, just applying, reaching out to people. It's been a bit of a long road. The pandemic, of course, doesn't help. However, just doing what I can, staying positive, and also, yeah, just constantly reevaluating my skills and constantly reevaluating the things that I could do to finally get over that hump.
Okay, so you have already studied abroad for a full degree from Canada to the USA, which is great. I commend you on your reasoning behind coming to the States. Obviously, University of Pittsburgh is an excellent university. So, but having said that, there are many excellent universities in Canada. So I like that you want to form your own opinion. Isn't that really the reason that study abroad exists in general, is to give that global view, that competence, that understanding of why people think, speak, act the way they do relative to their own local culture and upbringing and individual thoughts. So I think that's great. So take us back then. You're graduated. You've decided the career, the sector that you want to go into. What was the first thing that you did? You're sitting there on the Monday morning. You've graduated. You've got a nice crisp graduation certificate, and you're ready just to take on study abroad world by storm.
So the first thing that I did was I got in touch with the coordinator that I worked with while at the University of Pittsburgh on that study abroad in Rome program. And he sent me a bunch of resources. He gave me his own kind of personal experience working on the inside of study abroad. And I really took that and honestly, did my research, but it was mainly just applying to any position that I could see. I really had this mentality, okay, now that I've completed my studies, I need to just get a job. This is the field that I want to get into. And so any job that I see comes up that I like, or I think I'm qualified for, I'm just going to apply to it and hope for the best. And I did that for quite some time. I really did that, honestly, from the time I graduated up until a little bit before the pandemic broke out. It was just a long 6 months of every day, just getting on the computer, looking for the opportunities that were out there, just applying to them, cold applying. Didn't really think a lot about networking. I honestly had this kind of idea about, well, I have this international experience. I grew up in Canada. I studied abroad in Italy. I have experience in Italy. I went to school in the US. So, and also the idea that, well, I have a master's degree, so I'm just going to apply and then people are going to see, my worth just based on all these facts on a piece of paper. And it didn't really work. I applied. I lost track of the numbers somewhere, and it was well over 100. And I would say in that 6 month period, maybe got 7, maybe 8 interviews at most, which is really less than 10%. That's not very successful at all. And I just kept going with it. And then, okay, so a couple of weeks ago by, I wouldn't get anything, but then I would get that interview. So I'd say, oh, maybe I'm doing something right. But then I'd go to the interview process, and then even that too, kind of not being able to kind of sell my story enough, just thinking about, I'm not getting over the hump. And why am I not getting over the hump? Clearly I have enough on a piece of paper, I guess, to a certain extent, to get the interview. But I'm obviously doing something wrong. But I just kept going with it, because every now and then I get that interview, just kept going with it. And then the pandemic broke out. And then when the pandemic broke out, and people, especially in our sector, in all sectors, but in our sector specifically, getting furloughed, all the issues that came with that, jobs not being posted anymore, companies losing money, I thought to myself, I can't keep doing what I'm doing, because 1, it hasn't been working, and 2, it's not going to work from here on out. So I really need to innovate.
It's interesting how, there's times I remember when I was growing up, and my parents would be giving me advice on various different things. And sometimes I'm like a spoiled child. I don't want to listen to it and those types of things. And other times you're going, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But the visuals of something like that are when you can see something tangible. If you do this, this will happen. That's great. I too had the same situation in my life where I had finished my master's, and I thought, well, I've got a master's now. So doors are pretty much going to open for me. And I remember I was working, and I did my second master's in business, and I worked full time. I I had a flexible schedule, and then I did a full-time master's as well. So I don't actually know how that worked, but it did, and I got there. And I remember coming back when I was in, in work in normal hours afterwards, and saying to my boss, we were doing an employment, a 6-month update, and we were looking at, what kind of increase in salary there would be and those types of things, which is usually cost of living. And that's what it was. And I said, well, I was kind of thinking that there'd be something more than that at this stage. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, because I have a master's. And he goes, well, that's great. Congratulations. How's that going to make any difference to us? What are you going to do now that you have the skills there that you've learned during your master's to make us more money or to work towards whatever the mission of this organization is? And I had failed fundamentally in thinking about, when you want to improve yourself, when you want to get a job, when you want to start a business, when you want to do something else, you have to solve a problem. And you have to show why you're the best person to do that. So just having a piece of paper means nothing. And I know that now that we are hiring people and we have staff and things. To me, the most important thing is when you have somebody that they will get stuff done. They're competent, they have common sense, those types of things. You don't have a common sense certificate. So what you have is on paper, something that looks attractive enough to say, okay, he looks like he's got what he needs. Let's see whether he has these intangibles that black and white on paper, you can't really put down. What's his personality like? Do we think he's going to fit in here? Does he have integrity? Is he going to do what we want him to do? Is he going to deliver on the mission of our organization and represent us in a client-facing role to the level that we would expect? Those types of things. With that in mind, talk us through those 6 or 7 interviews. When you think about them now, do you think, is there any times where you just sit there and cringe and go, oh, I can't believe I said that? Or, tell us a little bit about when you think retrospectively about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I focused a little too much on particular experiences that I had, especially with trying to get into international education. I focused a lot on the experience that I had as a program administrator in Rome, and also as with the job that I was just doing at the University of Pittsburgh, which was teaching courses and dealing with students. Whereas I didn't really think a lot about, or give a lot of, I didn't really think a lot about some of the other experiences that I had that were on my CV that are still applicable. One of them that I even thought about later was during my undergrad for 3.5 years, I worked at a bank. I learned a lot at a bank. I learned, aside from just constantly dealing with sensitive information, and being entrusted with that sensitive information, client service is a skill that you could use across the board. But I just would think, oh, well, if I'm applying to a university or a third-party provider, they're not going to care about what I did at a bank. But really, that's part of it. Also, too, even just instances while I was working at that bank, such as problems that arose either with clients or with my team members. How did I solve that? What role did I play in, again, solving that problem? I didn't really think about that. I just focused, I'm going to focus on the kind of academic experience that I have, because that's going to be related to this academic position or staff position that I want. That was one thing. Another thing too, even thinking more so about my experience and what I did specifically, going beyond kind of the bullet points that I would put in my CV and really drawing those out. I would always get stumped when I would be asked, for example, what's an incident that comes to mind, some kind of problem that arose, and how did you solve it? So, okay, there were a couple that would immediately come to mind. But then after that, when they would look for something a little more intricate, I'd just be kind of, like babbling on, so to speak. I wouldn't really have a concrete thing because I didn't really feel super prepared. I thought to myself, oh, okay, well, they're just going to stop at this one example, when really it's essential to think, this is just what I've learned. It's essential to think about all the experiences that you've had, even beyond kind of the work experience, the academic experience too. I had, in one interview, I was asked about just problems that arose while I was a student. And I had to kind of be quick on my feet and think of something on the spot, but I don't think that it was very good. And I think that the interviewer saw right through it. And it's something that I thought about after. I never actually thought, I just thought, similar to kind of what I said before, well, I said I got a master's from this place, and I said I got a BA from this place. So they're not going to ask anything else about that when they could. Problems arise as a student all the time. I was also involved in student organizations, but I never thought about actually applying that to an interview for a job. I just thought, oh, okay, I'm going to focus so much on my job experience, and particularly job experience that I think is relevant, just from the way it looks.
You know, we talked yesterday. You know, I thought it would be a half-hour chat. We talked for nearly 2 hours yesterday, and it was, you know, it was great. It was great to hear your story, and I'm excited for what's in store for you. But we talked a little bit about the fact that you're in a sales process, and anybody else who's listening out there who's in a similar situation to Matteo, you are in. Make no bones about it. You are trying to sell yourself above others, and you know, sales 101, you need to know, you know, your client. And so we talked a little bit yesterday about really basic stuff. You know, if you're going to work in a provider, then you need to know their programming. Where are they strong? Where are they absent? Why are they absent? You know, going through that research process and doing it for every single job. So I'm sure within career offices and things, people that are listening will have had resume and CV prep and cover letter prep and all of those types of things, and interview prep as well. But oftentimes people will put so much time into prepping the CV, and you know, these are the 2 documents that are going to get me in the door. Getting in the door is the relatively easy piece because it's black and white. You either have what it takes when it's on the CV or not. I mean, it is part of the sales process, but it's the easier piece. It's being able to formulate a clear pitch to the person or the people on the panel or the organization or the job, the role, whatever it is, for yourself, and positioning yourself as the best way to deliver on what they're looking for.
Nowadays, it goes beyond just, okay, the capability, you know, your capabilities to do the job. It's a lot of teamwork, and the chemistry is what's really important for organizations nowadays. They want to know that you have a personality that could jive with the other team members. And I didn't really stress that. I just said, oh, okay, so I wake up at this time, and then I would go to work. I wouldn't talk about anything I would do from the time I woke up to the time that I would go to work. And then while I was at work, this is what I would do. This is what I would teach. I'd collaborate with some students. I'd have my own classes, and then usually my day would end around 5 o'clock. But then what happened at 5 o'clock? I didn't just go home and go to sleep. But I wouldn't think about it. I wouldn't think about telling them about that, because I would think to myself, oh, they just want to know what I'm doing work-wise. No, they actually want to know kind of how, outside of my responsibilities, what kind of person am I? Am I somebody who just thinks about work and then goes to bed? Or am I somebody who, you know, enjoys going out, enjoys getting to know people? Those are qualities that extend a lot further and are more important nowadays, I think, more than ever.
I have written down here, personality trumps a learned skill set. From my perspective, what I'm looking at is somebody the type of person that you want on your team, and attitude is just huge. And if there is a particular skill set that a job requires that doesn't take years and years to learn, then as an employer, I'm gonna say, okay, you maybe don't necessarily have that, but a few days of workshops and, you know, or a 3-month course or something like that, we can get that skill set into that person. What's more important is I love the attitude that they have to work. I know they're going to come with a positive, you know, frame of mind all of the time, and they're going to get their stuff done. They're going to have common sense. They're going to make 99% of the time the right choice if they don't have goalposts, and they just have to say, okay, well, I think this is the best way forward. Those are the types of people that you want on your team, and sometimes if they are lacking a particular learned skill set, that's acceptable.
I've been asked, how would you go about establishing a new program in a region we haven't been before? Mm-hmm. And again, it was one of those things that put me on the spot. I didn't really think about it. I thought more about, okay, well, I'm going to join this company, and then we're just going to work on the active programs. But in reality, companies always want to expand. You're not looking to kind of just stay limited in one niche. And if you can expand, it's better. And so I remember feeling a little bit put back by that question. And again, kind of getting into that, all right, well, I don't want to say I don't know. So I just got to kind of babble on and make something up, try to come up with something on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes, and there's no hard and fast science to this, sometimes I don't know. And saying it, delivering it in an appropriate way is a better thing to say, rather than making something up that has no research behind it whatsoever, and it's the best thing that comes to mind on the spot. Mm-hmm. Unless you got some gold that just hits you there. Really, sometimes being honest about things, even if that's not the answer you want to be giving, it's stopping you waffling, and it's honest, and it's a brave answer, because an interviewer knows that nobody wants to say I don't know. You know, And that's where these secondary questions that you have come in. So you're not just saying, I don't know, and stopping. You know, you want to try and keep the conversation going, but you want to keep it going in a sensible, intelligent way. And so having these things as a backup is something that's of particular interest. And saying, I'm not sidestepping the question, I don't know, but something I did have a question about was, you know, these types of things. So so yesterday, so you'll be going for a year, right? Mm-hmm. So the six months, and you're bashing your head against the wall. Okay? Mm-hmm. I think there's probably a lot of people that are doing the same thing now. Then COVID turns out, and you're going, holy moly, I've been bashing my head against the wall, and there was no COVID, and now there's COVID. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on where you're at now in your journey towards a career in study abroad?
A lot better than 6 months ago, which I know sounds a little interesting just because the last 6 months have been such a turbulent time and really just poor for a lot of people. But I feel a lot better because it really finally put me on the spot to say what I've been doing these last 6 months, the thought process that I've had while approaching job applications has not been working out, and I need to do something new because I don't know when jobs are going to start coming back. I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side, and I'm not just going to sit around for X amount of time, however long it's going to take until something happens. So I need to develop a new way to approach finding my next opportunity. And then even getting into that, I really start to think, you know, what are some of the, like, one thing that I've been using a lot, and it's actually helped me out a lot, is LinkedIn. I've been using LinkedIn a lot, not just to network, but also to actually post content and put out my own ideas, which is something that I really retracted from for a long time. I had a LinkedIn for about a year before I really started to use it. I never really used it. I always felt very, in general, especially when it comes to personal use, I've never really been big on social media, but I said to myself, this is what's happening right now. So I don't want to just sit around for the next however long. I need to actually, you know, pound the pavement and do something. And also, again, just even putting my ideas out there, which is, it's very scary at first, but the vast majority of the time, people want to hear what you have to say. People are interested to know what you have to say. And then even too, just in my own experience, like job hunting, it's one of those things where prospective employers could look at my profile. I'm already giving them a glimpse of who I am, how I think, what kind of pages that I follow. That goes beyond, because of course in LinkedIn, you already put kind of what's in your CV. It goes beyond what's in my CV. It gives them an opportunity to kind of see, you know, who I am as a person and where my interests lie. And so I aside from the fact that I've just really enjoyed it, I've gotten used to it. It was very difficult at first. So I do sympathize with people who find it difficult at first to put their thoughts out there. Impostor syndrome as well. I can't say I don't suffer from that. I know a lot of people do. There are times where it takes me forever just to post a couple lines of my thoughts on a particular piece, because I just think, oh, you know, maybe that people aren't going to care. People are going to look at my profile and see I'm young. I don't have that much experience to begin with. What do I know? But people do care, and it says a lot about you. And aside from even just myself connecting with people, reaching out to people, especially I would say in the last 2 months, because I've been doing this for about 6 months now, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, which has been quite interesting. People reach out to me to say, hey, you know, I saw this thing that you posted. I saw this article that you wrote. I like your stuff. Like, I'd like to connect. I'd like to learn more about you, which for me is, you know, I would have never imagined that 6 months ago. So LinkedIn for me has been absolutely crucial over the course of this past 6 months.
That is great advice, I think. I want to go back to something that you said before when you were talking about your journey to where you are now, and when you graduated, and you said, okay, I know the sector I want to go into, and I'm just going to apply for every job I can possibly see in the sector, and that's it. And I applaud you on that, because I think when you're starting out in the career, it's very difficult to get your foot on the ladder. And there are those that have this notion that this is what I'm going to do, and that's that, a subsector of you know, education or international education or those types of things. But there's, in my experience, it's easier to get a job when you have a job. And particularly when you're starting off with literally your first career job, there are commonalities in jobs that are in totally different sectors. You know, there's the requirement to deliver, to hit your performance indicators, to interact with your colleagues in a certain way. You know, those types of things. When you have negative relationships in an office, or how to engage with everybody that you're working with and clients and those types of things. Like you said, in the bank, you know, it's a transferable skill, those types of things. So having any job at all, be it in international education or not, is better than none, because you can pay the bills and you are in a more comfortable place. And regardless of the fact that, let's say you still had your bank job, regardless of the fact that you're not in a higher education job, there is a certain confidence that having a job, you know, I'm getting a paycheck at the end of the week. I don't actually really need this job to live, to pay for food and accommodation and those types of things. Just transitioning or being tangential to our conversation from yesterday, what's your plan for the next 6 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So my plan for the next 6 months is really to honestly keep the ball rolling on a lot of the good habits that I've developed, because I think even in terms of job searching, it also goes beyond actually looking for a job. A lot of it also has to do with how you live your life outside of that, because that definitely affects your mentality when going into looking for a job. I recently landed an internship with Gateway International, the wonderful Tony Ogden, which is really, I mean, it's in the field. It's a more of a research-based position, but it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's going to help in the long run. And it's also nice just in general. I mean, even going back to kind of what you said about having kind of anything to do at the moment, it definitely helps to give you a sense of, you know, some real responsibility from kind of a job perspective. And in addition to that, yeah, honestly, continuing to network, continuing to connect with people, continuing to put my thoughts out there, and also continuing to think about what else can I really offer to this field aside from passion, because everybody is in this field because they're passionate about it. Everybody's in this field because they've studied abroad, been an international student. What is it about me that's different, and what kind of value could I really bring to a company? So it's been something that's been on my mind, that I'm consistently developing, in addition to even just developing more of my CV, looking back at old cover letters. What were some of the things I stressed? What were some of the things I didn't stress enough? That's really what the future holds for me. And just above all, even though it's kind of cliche to say it, staying positive, because there's so much negativity going around. You can only do so much for yourself, and you can only do so much to help your situation in general. I think it comes out to just, it's something that I'm not great at it, but I'm definitely worked on it, kind of focusing on what can I control and what can I not control, focusing on what I can control. Because if I consistently think about what I can't control, I'm going to stay stagnant, not going to move anywhere, similar to the first 6 months of this experience.
I think that's great. There are two things there. Staying positive is definitely something that's true to my heart. I believe very much in karma and in an energy, and what you put out there, you get back, you know, in multitudes. And then the thick skin. So,
absolutely.
You know, I remember pounding pavements in New Zealand and Australia looking for jobs, and, you know, weeks and months on end, and being downhearted and embarrassed at times, you know, because it's just not happening for you. And that's a difficult thing to take, and it's a humbling experience. And you're in a situation where you need something that somebody else can give you, but why should they give it to you? You have no divine right to anything. It's like what both of us thought when we had our master's degrees and open the door, here I come. That's not what happens. Why should they? You know, so what? Are you any better because you have that degree than somebody else who doesn't? Maybe they deliver an awful lot better, or maybe they sell a better story, or maybe they interview better, or those types of things. So life just isn't fair at times. And the only way that you're going to succeed is to have a thick skin, where you're told no 199 times, but then the 200th time you get what you're looking for. If you let yourself go after 199 times, somebody else will rock up and get you the job that you deserve. And all of that effort that you've put in will just be wasted. So the positivity and the thick skin are just absolutely essential. I think that's great. I think, you know, we've been going for a while now. So what I'd like to do is say, well, first of all, say thanks so much. I hope that listeners have at least been able to empathize. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in a similar situation. I think networking, like you're doing at the moment, that's how we connected on LinkedIn, and I applaud you for that, is something that everybody should be doing. I'm doing it now. In terms of COVID, it's it's one of those situations where the more people we know, the more conversations we have, the more opportunities will pop up, and the more we will see new needs that are coming out of the marketplace that exists at the moment, and that's really important. So I had said to you yesterday, or at the start before we started recording, that here's an opportunity for you to give 30 seconds of who you are to anybody who's listening to this. And maybe it's not somebody who can give you a job, but maybe it's somebody whose best friend or a father or some colleague has a job going, and they can say, hey, look at this guy. He looks like he's got his head screwed on. He knows where he's going. So here's your chance. Go for it.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that people who are listening can sympathize with the experience, or even if I could just lend a hand and help out just the way people have helped out to me. But I'm somebody who, aside from kind of those same passion points that I've given before, I'm somebody who's looking to innovate. I'm somebody who cares about, more than anything, honestly, the student experience and about making a difference in this world. And so if you're an organization who's looking to take somebody on to make a real difference in the cross-cultural competency, linguistic, anything international field, I'm your guy, and I will not let you down. I put my head down, I work hard, and above all, I care about being here. So thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Matteo. I appreciate it, and wish you the best for the day, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.
Cheers.